Hi everyone. Okay, I know it's been a while since we've done some loom knitting videos, so we've got a few coming up for you. Today we are going to be making it's basically like a sort of knitted headscarf. Basically the idea with this is a lot of the time, even though you want to wear sort of knitted accessories, you don't want them to be too warm. You don't want to be wearing really big thick woolly hats all of the time. So this is a really sort of nice little project. It looks quite pretty. And we're going to be using 2 stitches. One of them I've never done on a tutorial video, one of them I've only done once, so we'll see how we go with this. So you're going to get to learn some new stitches as well, potentially. Now for this project we need the basics. We need your loom knitting hook, we need some sort of thick darning needle, scissors, either a stitch counter or a pen and just a scrap piece of paper to keep track of your rows and lines, and some yarn. I'm just using a standard DK acrylic because this is the type of thing that will get thrown through the wash all the time. But obviously anywhere between sort of a 4-ply, even a 3-ply and a standard chunky yarn would work with this project. Okay, so we're going to start by making our simple slip knot. There we go. And we're just going to fasten that onto the base of our loom. Now, the one thing I did forget to mention is what size loom you need. This is the second biggest in the standard sets of 4. It's the same one as we used for the fox hat. I'm just going to count this to check the pegs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37? Is that right? Is that the actual number? That doesn't seem right. Yes, because I counted that twice. It's 36 peg loom. Okay, but general rule of thumb, it is the second biggest that you get in the packs of 4 you usually get. And it is, yeah, it's the same one we use for the fox hat. So if you made that one, it fitted fine. You know it's going to work for this one. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we are going to just A-wrap every single peg. Okay, there we go. My tension's gone funny. There we go. Okay, now what we're going to do from this point is, to start off, we're going to do 8 rows of rib knit working in the round. Now, that was a bit of a mouthful, but basically, if you can't remember rib knit, don't worry, we're going to go over it. All you do for rib knit is you hold, the way I do it is I tend to hold the yarn down in a diagonal across 2 stitches. So you work them in pairs, yeah? And then what you do is you come up and over. And then on the next one, what you do is you go down through the stitch, you hook the yarn, and you pull it up and through, okay? And then you just pop it back on the top like that. I'm going to do that again. You go down like this, because what we're doing is we're going on one of them, we're going up and over, and on the next we're coming down and through, yeah, like that. So we're coming up and over, and then we're going down through the stitch and lifting it up and through, and then we're taking that loop, pushing the old one back and popping that one on. Okay, and you're just going to continue like that all the way around. And like I say, we're working this in the round, so you just keep going. You don't need to go back and forward. So just going to keep going around like this. Whoop, up and over, down, pull it up and through, flick it back and put the new loop on. Yeah, so you're just going to keep going round and round like that until you've done 8 rows. Okay, and I'll meet you back here in 8 rows time. We've done our 8 rows in rib stitch. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go from knitting in the round to knitting in the flat. So this is we're knitting with, this is our first peg, so this is our last one. So to split this into knitting into the flat, we're just going to do 3 rows of a standard A-wrap. So we're going to come back off the last one we knitted. We're not wrapping that one because we always use the just knitted one as a turning peg when we're knitting in the flat. And we're just going to go around, and we're literally going to wrap the whole thing, come to here, you know, knit it off until we're back round to here. We're not going to join it though, we're going to knit in the flat now. Okay, I've done that row, so now as you can see we are back to what was our first peg. So I've A-wrapped all the way around that way, knitted it all off, and now we're going to go back the other way. So this is our second of the 3 plain A-wraps. So again, using the last one knitted as the turning peg because we came around this way, so that was the last one we knitted off, or we wrapped rather. Then we're using that as a turning peg, and we're going to go all the way back round, and again we're going to knit all of these off until we come to here. We're never going to knit across these because we're going back into flat knitting now. Yeah, so I'm going to do this one, and then after that I'm going to go back round again. So that's a total of 3 lines in a plain A-wrap, knitting in the flat, and then I'll come back to you when we're at that point. Okay, I've done the 3 rows of plain A-wrap, and we're coming at this stage. Okay, this is where we go into our interesting stitches. Now, I've heard this one called a figure 8, an S-stitch, a brick stitch, just lots of, I like calling it a brick stitch because I think it looks like little bricks in a wall when it's done. But anyway, we'll call it brick stitch. It can be a thing now. It can be our thing. Okay, so we're back to here. Now, when we're doing this stitch, I find it easier if instead of focusing on the pegs, you focus on the gaps. Okay, so again, we're still working in the flat for the rest of this project. What we do is we come through our first gap, because that's the first peg, so this is the first gap, so we'll come through the first peg and we come around and back. Okay, you see what I did there? It came through the gap, it went around and then came back through and went over the front of that peg. Then what we do is we knit both of these. Then we come to the next gap. So we've done this gap, this is our next one, and we come through, around, back and front, and then we knit both of these. And then move round to the next gap. And again, we go through. It looks like you're pulling this yarn a long way, don't worry about it, it's fine. You're coming through, around, back over the front, and knitting them both. Next gap, through, around, back over the front, and knit them both. And I want you to continue doing that until we get all the way around to the last peg. Okay, remember not to cross that gap, we're working in the flat now. Okay, we've done our first little row of brick stitch and we're currently looking like this. You can really see where the knitting in the flat is starting to cause that gap. Now, we've just knitted our last gap. So I've just knitted to that one. Yeah, that's the last peg. So the last gap we knit to is that one. But you will find it looks as if your wool comes off this sort of second to last peg. That's fine. That's no problem at all. That's how it should look. Now, before we turn and go back, and we're going to be doing that little brick stitch all the way to the end now, but before we go back, we need to start decreasing. So all we're going to do is take one stitch from each end and pop it up and over. Yeah? So we're literally widening out that gap there we started to create by knitting in the flat instead of the round. Now all you do is each time you decrease is you just treat the stitch you've moved over and the one underneath it, the one that was originally on the peg, as one stitch. So you will just knit them together. Okay, so literally this is now a first gap because we're coming back this way. So we go to a gap, we go around, back and over, and we just knit them both off, and then we literally just continue around, going to a next gap, and we just continue around the same as we did. And obviously when we get to that decrease stitch, we remember we're treating these two as one stitch. Now, this is basically it for the rest of the pattern. You continue to do this, going back and forward, moving in one stitch from the end each time until you come down to a point and you only have 2 pegs left at the very end. Okay, so this is going to take you, let's do the maths, about another 13 rows to get to that point, but obviously you don't have to keep track of them because you will just see your work slowly coming down to a point until you've just got 2 little pegs way opposite your starting peg left. Okay, so just keep going around, remembering to decrease in 1 from each side every row and sticking with that little brick stitch that we've just gone over all the way to the very end of the project. So keep going on that, and I will come back to you when we're right the way down just to those last 2 little pegs at the end of the project. Okay, we are down to our last 2 stitches. You can see I've just decreased in because these each have 2 on. So we're just going to do one final little stitch to get them down to 1, and then we are going to finish this project off. So first of all, I'm just going to cut my yarn there, and then there is pretty much no making up with this. It is pretty much done now. So we literally just take our needle and we're just going to come down and through one and down and through the other, and then literally just tie a small knot. There's lots of different ways of casting off, but to be honest, when you're down to 2 stitches, you know, it's not really impacting the project a huge amount because it's such a small cast off area. So there we go. So now we have that down, and that can be trimmed. Just trim it right in, and I'm going to go back to this because this is still loose. You can see we've still got our small slip knot in it, so I'm just going to pop that out. And then we're just going to use this to come through on the inside of the project and pop a small knot in there. And we'll just work the tail of the yarn through before cutting that off. And there we go. There is. Now, you don't really see the true shape of this till it's on, because there's so much stretch in that lovely brick stitch. But there you have your small little sort of knitted headscarf. Have fun!